And joining the show is the great Darryl Hall, a man who sips a little bit of something with guests on television as well. You guys can go check out his show on Access. Darryl, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine, man. I'm just sitting here like everybody else by myself, hanging out,
You're a very gregarious person, and you love people. You like having people over. You love entertaining. I gotta imagine you're a lot like me in that you just miss being around human beings on a daily basis.
You want to know the truth? I'm not gregarious at all. I'm a total loner introvert.
Oh wow! You don't
Yeah.
come off that way.
Oh, it's I have there's sort of two versions of me in the world. But I mean, I like to be around people, and I love on my show. I love having being in that kind of an environment. But truthfully, when I'm left to my own devices, I like to just sit in the corner and read a book and look at the birds. I'm a very very quiet kind of introverted. Well, not introverted. That's the wrong word. But I'm what is the word? I'm not. It doesn't bother me to be alone at all.
Oh wow! Well, bird watching and bourbon go hand in hand. There's actually like a little niche community of people who go out and go bird watching and drink bourbon.
Yeah, sometimes they go bird watching and bird shooting too.
Yeah, that definitely happens quite a bit. Now you've had we had you at Bourbon and Beyond, and you all were great. I co-founded that festival with Danny Wimmer, and we just loved your performance, and it's like the amount of songs that you all have done that have touched the souls of like lives, whether it's like your stuff is played over and over and over and over. It's in commercials. You probably hear just walking down the street like, oh yeah, I recorded that in '83. You guys have you're one of the few. You're the best duo of all time, but you're really one of the few sounds of music that has penetrated all generations. And I wonder if do you look back on that and like you're like, man, we did something special here, or is it just you're just making music?
Well, I mean, I look at it. I don't look back at it, but I look at it and I think, wow. I mean, I see the same thing you see. I mean, it's I can't go anywhere without hearing my music. I mean, anywhere in the world, and I feel sort of like a world citizen. No matter where I go, people say, "Hey, how you doing?" No matter where I am, and it's all, as you say, all ages, all everything. I mean, there's no distinction with my audience. It's something that's been that way pretty much my whole career. I mean, I remember when I first started with John, when we were just kids, and we used to play in this place in Philadelphia, and we were just getting started, getting a following, but the people that were getting a following, okay, we were just in college, and we were getting, our own age, college kids and all that kind of thing. But then all these people were coming, we're going like, wow, there's old people here. And it was like, there was college kids and there were people in their 40s and, whatever. And I remember looking at John and saying, I think there's something unusual going on here because everybody likes us. It isn't just people our own age, because in those days, you didn't think like that. It was a real generational divide back in the early 70s, late 60s. And we cracked that code from the get-go. So I don't know what to say. And now we've reversed it. Now we have people who are our own age, and then we have kids that are teenagers and even younger, and college kids. And I look at my audience, I see who's standing out there, and it's more what I'll call young people than people even close to my age.
And I think it's because you all made real music. I think there's so much stuff that's out in the world today that wouldn't see the light of day when you all were breaking onto the scene.
I don't know, man. I can't define it. I think that there's something that I do that's timeless. The subjects I pick, the emotion that I put into it, it's fun music at its core. And I think that touches people in a special way. And it just goes across all boundaries. And Other than that, I'm too close to it to really be objective about it.
Well, my 6-year-old was walking through the house the other day singing Family Man. So that was,
there you go.
you know, my wife looks at me and she says, "Does he know what that song's about?" So
better he doesn't.
yeah, so that was an interesting moment in the household. Man, I'm really glad that you were able to come on. Now, you are a huge wine fan. You're a wine connoisseur, and you know you can talk to wine at a very high level. What's your kind of background in bourbon? Have you always been a bourbon fan? Have you always liked whiskey? Is there a little bit of crossover there for you?
For years and years, I was very light on anything other than wine. I mean, I would have, you know, the occasional martini, I would have, you know, the Scotch on the rocks, that kind of thing. But I don't know what happened. About 10 years ago, I suddenly decided I was going to go in another direction, and I started drinking brown liquids, and my first thing was bourbon. I guess you know what it was. I know. I moved to Charleston. That's, of course, what am I saying? And if you're in Charleston, you drink bourbon. I mean, that's what people do down there, and that's what got me started. And then once I got into it, I really started getting into it for real, and took the same attitude about it as I had done with wine over the years. And I'm the same way with Scotch too, by the way. I'm a big fan of Scotch whiskey, but yeah, I mean that's how it happened.
Well, I think that the best segue to get into sipping a little good bourbon is just to do it. So we have a really, because of your palate. I studied your palate a little bit because you have such, I mean your program's excellent. And how many years has it been going now? You've had it for a few years now.
Well, we started at 13 or 14 years ago, and
wow.
we're just showing the old ones now, but we're getting ready to do new ones. So it's been going a long time.
You know, that's amazing. That's amazing to me because you were doing you know beverage programming before anybody, and you know I have a couple shows and the networks look at they still look at alcohol like it's the devil sometimes. So,
yeah, I know what you mean. I figured early on, man, if you're going to have a show at your house with your friends coming over and playing with musicians and everything, you got to have, you have to be have some alcohol around, and you got to have good food, and it's just natural. So I mean, it all happened very naturally.
Well, let's start with the Old Settler. Now,
okay,
this bourbon is not even available. This was made by a guy who is a broker. He's a power broker in the bourbon industry, and basically he buys barrels from distilleries and sells them to people who wants to start their own brands. Well, he came across some 12-year-old Kentucky bourbon, you know, from a distillery, and decided to bottle it up and give to some friends. And that's what I'm sharing with you here. And I'm actually sipping out of my Bourbon and Beyond glass. You know, I keep going back to that, but you know, you all were just so great at that festival. I hope you had a good time when you were in Louisville, because we sure loved having you.
I had a good time. Oh yeah, no, that was a great show. I remember it very well. So I got my Old Settler here. I put it in a glass, and I put just a couple drops of water in it because you got to open it up, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some people like that.
That's what I do.
Yeah. So I'm bringing it
to drink it just straight. I like the flavor to open up. I mean, hardly any water, not much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but I don't use ice. I like to.
I think, you know, when it comes to water, and so I'm a critic, and so I just naturally I taste it as it's bottled first, and then I kind of, you know, do what I want with it.
Well, I'll do that if you want. I mean,
no, you do it.
I'm just drinking it my normal way.
Yeah, you sip it how you normally do, and
okay. I put just a tiny bit of water in it.
Yeah, a little bit of water. Okay. I'll add some water too.
Okay, well, if you,
after I've had it. So just on the nose, man, this thing is really beautiful.
yeah, it's lovely. I got a real balanced, really a balanced nose. Okay, well, time to taste it.
And the proof on it, I guess I should have told you that.
Hold on a second, I can figure it out. It's a little higher proof, I think, right?
Yeah, it's very high in proof.
Yeah, I can tell because I can taste when on high proofs I can taste the alcohol. You know, I can taste the actual real alcohol in it. But it's good. It's really good. Even though it has that. Yeah, it's definitely packing some heat. But it's got good flavor though. Cuts through it.
120 proof.
Well, that's me. I would drink that sparingly. At 120 proof. But I would drink it because it's good. It's really good.
Now, when you're about to go on stage, will you have a little whiskey or will you have a little something?
I always do. I have before the show. I'm very what's the word? I have a real routine, and before the show, I go in. I go to my dressing room. Then I go and hang with the band right before the show, and we all sit there, and I invariably have at least one, sometimes two whiskeys before I go on, and then after the show I have one, and then that's usually what I do. Not much, maybe one more if the evening goes on, but that's pretty much a show day routine.
Okay. And like I've talked to a lot of country music singers. They've told me that their vocal cords can dry out if they have too much whiskey before a show. What's your balance there? Like, how do you keep your vocal cords in line?
I don't. It doesn't dry my throat. It actually loosens my throat up, my vocal cords, because it loosens me up. But I would agree, and I mean, there's a line there. If you drink too much, then it's not good for anything. It's not good for your focus or your energy or your throat or your voice so you got to keep a grip on it all. But like I say, I have one drink, sometimes two. That's about it.
You know, it's interesting. It might be the country music genre because the way they drink whiskey is a little bit different. sometimes straight from the bottle.
I got a feeling. Yeah, I hear you. And believe me, in my younger days, I've been there. But no, not nowadays. I'm very controlled.
So there's a real prominent note in this Old Settler. If you want to go back to it, I want to see if you're picking it up too. Man, I get a big old banana note, like a Bananas Foster. Are you picking that up?
You know, I wouldn't have. I mean, you put it in my head, but I definitely can taste that. Absolutely can taste that. Yep, for sure.
It's
really good.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame that this one isn't on the market for you to actually buy. So
now, tell me more about this again, because this is a single. I mean, it's not a blend, is it? What did you say it was?
So this is. So let's see what we have here. It is basically, it's a batch. So this is a batch of a few different barrels, I would say, of 12-year-old.
Oh, so it is. Okay.
Yeah. So it's not a single barrel. But the thing is that this is like, I don't even know if this has federal approval on it because the guy just basically bottled it up for some friends. And it probably does have federal approval. And he's probably going to launch his own brand with it. And maybe that's going to be one of the first bottles. I don't know. But it's my guess is that it's Barton, a distillery in Bardstown called Barton or 1792. That's a distillery that has a real prominent banana note, and they put a lot of their whiskey up on the source market. So I think that might be it. So I the next one I want to take you to, and the reason why I sent you this this Old Schenley, this stuff, is it's a Pennsylvania brand, and you being
I know.
a Pennsylvania boy, figured we might taste a little history here.
This Schenley, where was it distilled originally? Where was the Schenley factory? Do you remember or don't know?
Well, yeah, it was in. So Schenley ended up becoming like this enormous corporation, but yeah, there was a town called Schenley, and
is that what it was? I mean, Schenley was a local whiskey when I was a kid. My grandfather drank Schenley. I mean, it was one of those things. Was there a Schenley distillery there outside of Philadelphia?
So Schenley ended up having stuff all over the country. They once upon a time owned the George T. Stagg distillery that is now Buffalo Trace that makes Pappy Van Winkle. They owned a lot of stuff in New York. They owned distilleries. I mean, they were enormous. They were the number one company in the world for spirits.
Yeah, but I know they've been around, man, because I know this. I know this stuff from my childhood. Not this, but I know the name from my childhood. So, not that I was drinking it, but I was watching everybody else drink it.
Yeah, it dissolved over time. That
it went out of business, right? And then was revived.
Yeah. So the brand, the brand, you don't really see the brand around, but the assets of the company, very much are still in play. Like Diageo owns a bunch of it. So all the things that Schenley touched back in the day, still around. So this is
okay. I'm smelling this. This has vanilla, a little bit of vanilla in it. It's very different. Very different nose than the
Yeah, we may also want to set this one aside and let it open up a little bit. Let's do that because these older whiskeys, they're a little bit more fragile. I nosed that and I was like, yours might be smelling better than mine.
Okay.
All right, let's go to yours smells good. Mine's I think smelling a little off. Maybe because
I'd have to taste it, but mine smells good. So anyway, we can move to the next one, whatever.
Let's go to Four Gate.
Okay. Four Gate. Let me find it here. Four Gate. There it is. Okay.
And I sent you a batch 6, which is finished in cognac barrels. And
actually, this is Four Gate number 4.
Is it Four Gate 4?
4?
All right, then we have the same one here. So this is finished in new white oak split stave barrels. So they're doing some special experimental treatment there with the barrels after they've gotten their whiskey. Kind of a wine technique. You're starting to see that a lot more in American whiskey. People are playing around with barrels. The problem is that it's, technically those things don't really meet the regs for bourbon. So they've had to create a completely different category called distilled spirit specialty. And, something like this would fall under that. Now, whiskey is still usually pretty good. And this is a new brand on the market.
Completely different. Yeah, this is a completely different nose. This is almost has a little bit of aromatic, perfumey kind of smell.
Yeah.
What am I smelling here?
Well,
very different.
It reminds me in some ways of a real buttery Chardonnay on the approach.
Yeah, I was going to say it has a winey smell. You're right. It does. It has sort of a white, like a Chardonnay white wine smell.
Mm-hmm.
And you said that was the barrels they were using?
Yeah. So Chardonnay's got they're not using Chardonnay barrels, but they're doing techniques that would be similar to like what some winemakers do.
But it doesn't smell oaky at all.
No, it smells like butter.
No, it's got it. Yeah. It's got
Give it a little taste.
Let me find. Yeah, let me taste it. And this one I don't have any water in.
Oh man. I think I just poured my last bit of this one. That's good.
Yeah, that's real good.
115 proof.
Yeah, you tell that too. I just put a little more water in to open it up. Hold on. That's a little too alcoholic for me. Straight. It's much thinner than the other one to the palate. Yeah, I don't know. This one, to me, it's a little raw, more raw. It isn't as round as the other one.
Okay, so this one's hitting it. It's a little edgy for you.
Yeah, a little edgy.
Yeah. Okay. I get it.
Yep.
It's hitting my sweet spot. So
No.
that one is
it's not hitting my sweet spot, but everybody has different taste buds.
That's exactly right. That's the thing about tasting is that we all taste differently,
subjective.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's all subjective. I mean, there's certain things that you can share, like you said, that the banana tone. I mean, I could taste that. Once you said that, it was absolutely right. I don't taste any sweetness in this at all, though. It's kind of a thin, almost acidic thing to me.
Nice. So when you look at, so we're talking about this, subjective nature of tasting.
Mm-hmm.
Music is really similar, where like people have their own taste in music, and that's evolved a lot in the last 10 years in terms of what people go crazy for.
In a good way. People are making their own minds up about music now.
Mm-hmm.
The gatekeepers, the great gatekeepers, and the great program directors, and the great record executives, and even the great. When I say great, I'm using that word in a pejorative way. Like the Rolling Stone people and all that, to tell you what you should listen to and tell you what's good. I don't think that anybody gives a shit about that anymore. People like what they like, and it doesn't matter when it was written or who it is or what it is. And it has become very, very subjective, because music hits everybody in a different way. It has to do with their own experience and what they like, with the kind of voices they like to hear, the tone of a voice, the kind of chords they like to hear. I could go on and on about this, but it is absolutely subjective.
And to that point, like you can see in real time the data of what people are listening to through all these various streaming devices, so. Well,
yeah, I do follow that to some degree because of myself. It's really interesting to see what moves people, and all kinds of things do. I mean, it's all over the place, which is a good thing. I really think there's something about the breakup of the sort of the mindset that was controlling music. And that's a good thing. It's really a good thing. It allows people to think for themselves, really, and like what they like.
What's an instrument that you've always wanted to get into a song, but you just haven't? You have an instrument you've been wanting to get into a song?
Well, an obvious one for me, and this isn't anything obscure, but I think that a few of my songs over time, I would have liked to use to use the pedal steel, but it connotes so many things. Immediately you start thinking country as soon as you hear a pedal steel guitar, and I'm not saying it wouldn't work, but I never did it because I didn't want to push those buttons in people's heads. And so that's an instrument that I've never used, that I probably should have used it a few occasions.
I'd love to hear a little pedal steel and a Hall Oates song. What song are you thinking that would be a good fit for?
Oh, I don't know. I'd have to. I mean, many of them, really.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, as soon as you put a pedal steel guitar in the song, it changes the direction. It takes it directly to a place in people's heads. and that's why I haven't done it. You know,
Okay.
because yeah.
Well, let us tear into this Pennsylvania whiskey real quick.
Which is the Schenley, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the Schenley. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, what did I do with it? Did I put my Schenley aside? Oh, here it is. It has now. It has kind of a caramelly.
It opened up
compared
for
to the
you.
other one. Yeah,
Yeah.
it opened up. I like it. It's the butterscotchy caramelly kind of smell.
Well, my friend,
like
I think you got the best of that bottle because
whatever I got, it's good.
Yeah, because
right now this is my favorite one of everything I've tasted.
Well, and the reason why I tell you that, so my goal was to like kill this bottle with you, you know, with that Pennsylvania story. But what I think happened was it got a little oxidized after, because I haven't opened this in a while. It got a little oxidized after I poured it for you, and the remaining liquid in here got a little oxidized. So it's definitely got like that cardboard, and you know what cork tastes like. You know what all those things taste like. So it's got like that cardboard kind of flavor for me.
This one isn't that way at all. No, this one is nice and round, and it's. I like this. I like this whiskey right here.
That's fantastic. I'm glad to hear it because this was one of my favorites.
What proof is this, by the way?
This is 100 proof, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see, that's the other thing. I tend to like slightly lower proof whiskeys because it doesn't the alcohol flavor doesn't interfere with the the flavor.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's not this. So far this is my favorite one.
You know, it's interesting too. Is like this is it's 8 years old, and to me that was once the standard of what American whiskey should be aged to. And then after that, people, you know, in the 90s, people started really, getting excited about things that were over 15 years old and in their 20s. Yeah. But 8 years old, to me, is like the magical number when all the good things start happening to whiskey. So if you get that perfect 8-year-old barrel, I mean, it can be fantastic. And so, you know, if you think about it, in the 40s when the distiller was making this, they were doing things with different grains. They put it in a barrel that was from different wood. You know, there was no GMO. The water was different. No computers in the distiller. I mean, so it's a little bit of history.
Yeah. There you go, man.
All right, so let's get to this is an exciting one for me. The Sinclair, the French lick.
Okay, what am I looking at here?
I don't know. I don't remember how I labeled it for you, but it should be Spirits of French Lick or Lee W. Sinclair.
Oh, got it.
Got it.
It was
all right,
just hiding here. Okay, let me check this out. Let me check this one out. All right.
And this one is 109 proof.
Okay.
Have you ever been to French Lick, Indiana?
No.
They got a casino there, and but there's a rising star distiller in French Lick. So this is made at a little bitty tiny distillery in Indiana. And this the recipe on this is they're using 4 grains, which is not typical: corn, wheat, oats, and barley.
I sense it's a little bit of, what is that? There's a certain sweetness in the nose.
It's like a bread sweetness, you know, like.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, there it is.
I mean, it's funny. These are all distinctly different. Every one of them. I like the smell of this one.
Yeah, Daryl, you're fun to taste with because you really do you apply your background in wine to this, and this is
Hmm.
fun.
And once again, I'm going to put. I just tasted it without the water, but I really need. I always need some water. Just open things.
Mm.
It's a little thinner. I don't know how to put it. The viscosity or whatever. But it's. I can't place the flavor of this. They're all different, man.
Yeah, this okay. So the main flavor for this for me is a uh, you know those big old fat pieces of wheat bread that have like little nuts in them, like sunflower seeds and stuff, and they're cut really
Yeah,
thick.
yeah,
That's what it tastes
yeah.
like to me.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, man, I dig that one. What do you think overall,
Tastes like
though? Is it your jam?
I think I like this one second to the
Oh
Schenley.
wow,
Yeah.
that's
I'm
saying
not
something
sure
right
though.
there.
Well, it's hard to say. You know the old story. Once you have 3 or 4 of these, then you start losing your, distinction of tasting these things.
Yeah, it's a little different. Yeah, you definitely are tasting just slightly differently.
Yeah.
The Fred Minnick Show is brought to you by The Beeline. Visit findyoursippingpoint.com, by Michter's American Whiskies, by 291 Colorado Whiskey, and Rack House Whiskey Club. Enter Fred at checkout to save $25.
So, what do you when you are relaxing at home? What are you pouring for yourself?
I've been going back and forth between things. I'm really into Islay Scotch, and I'm particularly like Bowmore. I mean, that's my favorite Islay Scotch, and I drank that, and I got some really good rye because occasionally I like some rye, and I got some Willits rye, which is great, really good stuff. And I drink that occasionally, and then I go back to Blanton's, because Blanton's it's Blanton's, it's great. And sometimes Woodford Reserve the double oak one because it has that double oak flavor. Let's see, what else have I been drinking? Yeah, the other rye, I drink Whistle Pig sometimes if I want to go the rye direction. So they're the ones pretty much. That's pretty much it right there.
Oh, that's a pretty solid bourbon collection you got there. You
Yeah.
Now, when you're on the road, do you go out shopping or have people go shopping for you? Because like that's you have a lot of access points.
Yeah, I do. And what I do is I have a writer, right? And I leave it up to I put down various things to give directions because I know that the person that's going out is not the promoter. It's a runner that's in a van, and he's going out to the liquor store. He says, Hall Oates want the your best rye or something like that, and you'd be surprised with the stuff you get just because the liquor store says sure, okay, and he slaps it down on the table and it winds up in my dressing room. So you never know what you're going to get, but I get a pretty good collection through doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's got to be an honor for a lot of. Do the runners tell the liquor stores like, hey, this is for Darryl Hall, or are they a little bit more coy?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows? It's just some kid probably. Usually runners are just they're down at the bottom of the totem pole, and they're runners and they go out and get stuff, and when they just fill the rider. So I try and give semi-specific direction without saying I only want this, because then you just get the one thing, right? I like to be surprised.
Nice. Well, you're you definitely are off to a good start. Now after this, I'm gonna make sure you get a little bit more arsenal in that collection. One of the things that I love to taste with people is this Wild Turkey Revival. Now, just out of curiosity, when I say Wild Turkey, what comes to your mind from a brand?
I think of deer hunting. I think of 5 o'clock in the morning deer hunting, and getting out there with my father and a couple other people, and after you come down, your initial coming down from the tree stand, you go out there and go to the local bar and have a couple shots of wild turkey. That's what I think of.
Oh, wow. You got like a story there with your dad. I love it. A lot of people associate wild turkey with like biker bars and just kind of like that general, like, shenanigans of bourbon, but they've got a lot of really great whiskey that I don't think they get enough credit for. And I'll be curious to see what you think of this one. Now, this is, do you like sherry at all? Like sherry?
Yeah, sure. I love sherry.
So this is this is bourbon finished in Oloroso sherry cask. So
I don't know if it's because you're suggesting it, but as soon as you said that, I can smell that exact thing. I smell the nutty sherry smell in it. I absolutely do.
And it's 101 proof.
Oh, I like this. This is really good. I tasted it straight, and now I'm going to just put a drop of water in. Oh, this is good. Yeah, this would definitely be good to take back to the tree stand.
Love it. What do you shoot with?
Oh, I stopped shooting because I got Lyme disease, and I fucking hate deer now.
I got I got Lyme disease too.
Yeah,
I got that when I was in the
time in the woods gets it,
Yeah, I mean,
When did you get it? I'm sorry. What did you say?
I'm sorry. I got that in 2003 when I was in the military. And
really?
Yeah.
Where in the military? Where were you stationed?
I was at Fort McCoy, Wisconsin, and it was right before.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of it up there.
Yeah, so Wisconsin and like Pennsylvania's bad, New York's bad.
Well, that's right. That's my world. Pennsylvania and upstate New York. I mean, that's where I got it.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Like I don't go out in the woods as much as I used to because of that fear of ticks. And
no, it's a shame, man. I mean, I was a woodsman, as you can tell, and I'm nervous about just. I mean, I live in the country. I'm sitting here talking to you right now, looking out into the woods in a field, but I don't really walk around so much out there because it's. I don't want to get I don't want to get bit again. It's a mess. It's really a drag.
Yeah, I was in the hospital for nearly a month.
Were you?
And
oh man, you got it bad.
Yeah, and I had like slight encephalitis, which is swelling of the brain, and I had all kinds of stuff, and it was just awful. But
I know
they killed it.
I hear you. Well, good for you. Who did you go to a Lyme literate doctor? How did you get past it?
Yeah, so the doc that I saw was in Milwaukee. His name was Dr. Buggy. And this
Buggy, well, that's a good.
I know, kind of an ironic name for the treatment here. But he actually specialized in helping people with HIV, and Lyme disease was like his second specialty. Exactly.
There's a lot of similarity between the two diseases. Obviously contracted differently, but there's a certain immune system and the way it attacks your cellular system and all that. So I can understand why he would have gone that direction. Did he just give you massive doses of antibiotics over a period of time?
Yeah, I got a PICC line, and he ran Rocephin, straight into me. And yeah. How about yourself? How did you How did you get
Well,
it treated?
I have a great doctor. I have a great doctor around here in upstate New York, and Richard Hall Oates, and he. It was. I didn't have it. I luckily didn't have to spend any time in the hospital, and I didn't even have to really go on a drip. I probably should have, but I didn't. But I just took massive doses of antibiotics over a long period of time, and finally got ahead of it. And I still have flare-ups. I mean, I'm sure you must have something. You know, it doesn't just go away. But I, I have my flare-ups, but it's manageable. That's the best way I could say. But I really don't want to become reinfected. That's for sure.
Yeah, my left side of my face is numb, and
God.
Yeah, so one of the things that I got
palsy?
was I got Bell's palsy, and it went numb, and so like sometimes when I smile, it looks like you can still see some of that effect, but man. I went to some of those support groups, and the people were like in wheelchairs and couldn't speak. It's just
I know all about it, man. I've been with you. It's pretty scary. I mean, it's pretty freaky. I don't think that people realize. Many people don't realize how bad it is and how bad it can be. But, that's life, man.
It is, and
life is weird.
It is weird, and I'm glad that even in this pandemic we can still have whiskey and talk about it. So
that's right. You have to look at it that way, I think. Yeah.
What's your thoughts on the wild turkey here? We got sidetracked a little bit, but you.
I know. I've been sitting here kind of sipping it a little bit. I like it. I like it a lot, actually. It's definitely not the wild turkey I used to drink. That's for sure. It's got more complexity. I can't quite put there's a certain. It's not round. It's good. It's slight astringency. I can't quite place the flavor. It's not oaky. It's not that. It's another flavor. I think I'm gonna have a little more of it just to see. You can tell I like it.
I'd like to. I don't want to say something and influence your palate. I think that might have been happening a little bit in this conversation. I don't want to do that.
It's almost. Yeah, I hear you. It's almost birchy.
Yeah,
that's how it's hitting me. It's almost that flavor. It's like I'm tasting like birch bark kind of flavor. I mean, that's the best way I can say.
Now
that's my taste buds.
Let's take a look at, like, have you ever had a roasted chestnut?
Sure.
Like over open fire or whatever, we hear.
Yeah. Sure.
I get a big chestnut note in this, there toward the end, and it stays in that kind of sherry wheelhouse, but there's a lot of those nutty flavors and some apricots, and then the bourbon stuff kicks in. A little maple syrup in there for me too. I've always really liked this one.
I like it a lot. It's got I get the nutty flavor. I don't get the chestnut. Actually, now I've just had another sip of it. I don't. That birch idea went away. I get the sherry thing. I get the nutty sherry thing. I don't get chestnut though. That isn't hitting me because I know that flavor. But hey, it's my taste buds.
That's right. Now this next one, the Warbringer. There's a reason why I saved it for last. This is an American whiskey that is basically smoking their corn with mesquite. And this is made in California, and similar to like what they do in Islay, like using peat to for the barley. They're doing that with corn, but using mesquite. And so this is a very American style of a smoke, and it does not This is not a known brand. It's not really out there. But I really, because of your wine background, I wanted to kind of take you around, the United States a little bit, from both a vintage perspective and like a new age and kind of like a brand that's good that you wouldn't think is necessarily good. And this one here is I'm just going to say it. I mean, this is out there in right field. You're either going to love it or you're going to absolutely hate it.
This is an easy name to remember because I've read about this in my news apps and stuff. I've heard about this particular whiskey. Let me see here. Well, you said already. You know what? It smells like roast corn. It smells like what it is. It smells like roast corn on the barbecue. I just tasted it. Straight. I'm going to put a little water in it. Well, I certainly don't hate it. Let me see here. Let me live with this a second. This is different. I got to say, these guys came up with some different stuff.
Yeah.
It's nothing like I like kind of Scotch or anything.
No.
It has its own complete direction.
Yeah, they really kind of broke the mold here a little bit with this.
Yeah, this is they get big marks for inventiveness here.
And that's one of the things, like, if you're a new whiskey brand coming out, you're sitting in the boardroom, you're saying, like, what can we do to be different? How can we be, different than everything else on the shelf?
Yeah, but that's a loaded thing because you can try to be different and wind up really going in the wrong direction. I mean, yeah, it's like anything. You can be you can try and be different. It's easy to be.
Absolutely true.
Well, it's true to what they do to it. It tastes like they roasted some corn. Tastes like roast corn.
Yeah, it really does.
That's as close as I can say. Yeah.
Maybe you say it's got a brisket note in there because mesquite's usually used with brisket, but
Well, maybe to me that corny flavor because it's like a roast. I guess it's the roast part, but yeah, like roast corn on a barbecue. That's what it tastes like. Which I guess you'd think the mesquite, which is true. This would be a good one to drink with barbecue and stuff. I mean, this certainly is complementary to that.
That's a good point. All right, so we've been through the lineup. Is Schenley still your favorite?
I think the Wild Turkey Revival or the Schenley are my two favorites. I think it's a tie there. Maybe leaning a little bit toward the Wild Turkey Revival.
And then coming in third, we have Spirits of French Lick, the Sinclair.
Yeah, that would be third. And then I'd put the roast corn guy here, the Warbringer.
Wow.
And then the last one is what did I drink? The four gate one. I think I like the least of all of them.
So
I think that's what I said. I can't remember. Yeah.
So you picked two small scale craft distillers over a 12-year-old Kentucky bourbon. That's impressive.
Well, there you go. Which is the 12-year-old Kentucky?
Old Settler. So you picked. Old Settler. Yeah. So you picked Sinclair.
Yeah, I didn't know the Old Settler. I just tasted it again. No, I'm sticking with what I said.
That's great. Well, that's a big win for a little bitty these two little bitty distilleries. I mean, because here's the thing: is like yes, it's true that all of our palates are different, but yours is actually trained. You know, you're trained in the field of wine, and that's where my background is from. Is from wine, from a
Hmm.
tasting perspective. And you know, it's one thing for someone to say, "I like this one more than that one," but you can actually articulate what you like about it, which is not always the
Mm.
case. And I thought you were absolutely spot on with everything. I do regret that my bottle turned on the Old Shenley, but I mean, what are you going to do? The bottle's old, you know, and
Hey,
it happens, you know.
it does happen. It does happen.
Have you ever cracked open a
Yeah.
bottle of wine and was like, "Oh crap, this is corked. I just spent
Oh
$800 on it."
yeah. Oh yes, I did. It's a funny thing. I stopped drinking wine for a while, and I had in my cellar. I didn't even go in my cellar for a long time, and then I went down there and I started turning the bottles, and I didn't even know what I had. And my God, when I found out what I had, it freaked me out actually. But I did open a couple, and they were just shit. They were past. It wasn't even they were past their time. It was very a shame, really. But that's happened to me more than once. I promise.
Yeah, I hate it when that happens. And you know, I just spent like I did a little mini documentary on Cork in Portugal, and the amount of testing and effort that they do with cork,
Mm.
it amazes me that you know that there would be anything going forward, because that's probably one of the most advanced like industries that touches like a beverage right now is the cork
Mm.
industry. It's really high tech at the moment, but of course, all those corks that are
Well,
defaulting on us are not from the current age.
they're from a different time, exactly. But I'm glad that the cork industry is sticking around, because I was really worried that for a long time they were talking about artificial corks and all that don't breathe, and I was dead against that idea. I'm a believer in cork in a wine bottle for sure.
You know, I am too. And the other thing is when we look at it from an environmental perspective or a conservation, you know, those synthetic corks, you know, those are made from plastic, and there's a big
I know.
impact on the environment. And cork is just shaved
Yeah.
off the tree, you know?
Exactly. It's all, hey, people have been using cork for how many years? How many,
Hmm.
centuries? Something like wine, you don't mess with it, man. Once you don't mess with a good thing, and it's all part of it. It's all part of the aging process and the breathing process, and the way wine matures in a bottle. You can't mess with that stuff.
Yeah. And you know, I taste plastic sometimes, and I've tasted it blind. Like I've called it out. I'm
Hmm.
like, I was like, this has plastic in it. And sure enough, it's either
Hmm.
got a screw cap with some kind
Hmm.
of like film underneath it, or it's
Hmm.
got a synthetic cork, you know?
Yeah, I hear you. I've had the same experience.
But cork, the reason
Yep.
why they don't
Well,
use it, sometimes it's a little bit more expensive, and you know, you're building out your
well,
bottle, you want to save some money, I guess.
yeah. Well, if you're making a wine that you care about, then you don't think about it like that. I mean, we're dealing with the finer things of life here.
That's
This
right.
isn't about trying to save some money.
That's right. That's right. Unless it's barefoot or something like that, you know, yellowtail, you know,
Yeah, exactly.
that's okay. They can have their screw caps over there, and I
They
don't
can do
think it.
whatever they want with that shit. Skinny
Yeah,
girl.
I mean, you know, they're not sticking that in the basement store for 10 years.
I hope not.
Yeah.
They'll be sorry if they do.
Yeah. What would a 10-year-old barefoot taste like? You know, like it's been aging in your cellar for 10 years. What would that taste like?
Probably tastes like barefoot. It's like a 10-year-old barefoot.
Oh, I love it. So we're coming down the stretch here in the pandemic, and everything looks like the world's kind of opening up just a little bit. Is there anything new with the world you want to share? Any new content you got coming out? Maybe a new song. Is there anything that you want to tell the world right now? What you got cooking?
I'm trying my best to work on. I'm actually working on a Hall Oates album, and I had so many false starts here because of this situation. And I'm working on my own. You know, John sends me a few ideas, and I work on it with a producer I've been working with, who is Dutch. So that becomes a problem because he was coming back. I was going over there. He was coming over here, and now we can't do that. So that got set on the back burner. I've been doing some stuff with producer Mark Ronson, who is a famous producer. He sent me some ideas. I've been working with him, but it's all haphazard and remote, and it's really hard to get into a groove with it. So it's frustrating, but I have some amazing things going on as far as recording goes, and so I'm doing that. I got the show that's back on the air again. I'm just waiting to get it back in front of people, man. You know, like everybody else.
So you're working on a new album. I know it. Yeah. I know it's got to be crazy doing that, but what's the process to be working on an album right now? You mentioned a little bit of it, but you're out of your routine.
That's what I mean. There is no process. There is no process. I got on a roll with this Dutch fellow's name, Jet Rebel. His name is Yelta, and he's an unbelievable producer, singer, songwriter, player, everything. And he and I were working together right up until this all fell apart here in the world. And he was over here in my studio. I was in his studio, and John was getting ready to come in and join the project. And then it all went to pieces. So I wouldn't say we're back to square one at all, because I have I have a lot of tracks cut, but they're just tracks and ideas that are not complete. And that's where I'm at with it. And I tried doing remote work, like WhatsApp and all that kind of thing, and it just doesn't work. There's no substitute for being in a room with somebody and banging it out face to face, eyeball to eyeball. It's a relationship that you have with your coworkers, and I'm just being patient. That's the best word I can use.
And I imagine too that you and John, you guys just have each other's looks, you know what you're going to say before the other finishes the sentence, so, that's hard to do in the virtual world.
That's what I mean. And John and I, we have a telepathic relationship, but that's what I always try and develop with the other people that I work with. And it's a real relationship that you develop when you're writing the song. You're really getting it's like psychotherapy when you write a song with somebody or even produce a song. And you can't really do it so easily in a remote situation.
Well, I know we're going to get through this, and I also know that your music and your TV show on Axis is helping others get through that. I hope you can take at least a little bit of joy in knowing that what you create means so much to people right now, because people do lean on a lot of Hall Oates, and they're watching you a whole bunch on the big tube. I
do appreciate that. Take joy in it, and I'm very honored that people feel that way about what I do. And that's my responsibility to give something back too. Back and forth, you guys and me.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. It is a real pleasure. I mean, I listen to you all the time, and there was a couple times when you were describing a tasting note. I was like, oh, it's like Sarah Smile, or oh, that's I mean, you man eater. It's great. It's great talking with you. You've got a great palate, and I'm so glad I could introduce you a little bit to the whiskey world. And there's gonna be more whiskey coming. Maybe maybe that's on a future show, and you pivot from wine just a little bit to a whole barrel of whiskey.
Man. Just you send me the stuff and I'll talk to you about it. No problem.
Right on.
Okay.
All right, Daryl. Well, you be safe out there, and I really appreciate you coming on.
All right. Thank you, man.
Cheers.
You've been listening to The Fred Minnick Show, brought to you by The Beeline. Visit findyoursippingpoint.com, by Michter's American Whiskies, by 291 Colorado Whiskey, and Rack House Whiskey Club. Enter Fred at checkout to save $25. For more information on Fred's books, articles, and more, just go to fredminnick.com.